Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to our Week 13 wide receiver fantasy segment. I'm your host, Jim Sella. I'm in studio with JDash, Big Easy. Thanks for tuning into the spread. You got some fantasy wide receivers for us, tier 1 to tier 1,000?
Yeah, but I don't know if I should give them to you.
Why?
Always hating on me.
The last two segments, I've told everybody how good of a producer you are, so I don't want to hear it.
T1000.
Yeah, whatever.
Let's
tier
go
1.
with T1E.
Well,
that?
Des Bryant, Brandon Marshall, and Kelvin Johnson already played on
Word.
Thanksgiving. So we got Antonio Brown, Demaryius Thomas, Jordy Nelson, Emmanuel Sanders, A.J. Green, and Julio Jones.
Julio.
Julius Peppers does lead the league in interception touchdowns, though.
Can I make a real quick comment? Three wide receivers in your top 4 tiers used to play for the Steelers at the same time.
And who was that?
Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, and Mike Wallace.
Okay, I thought you said 4.
Yeah, top 4 tiers.
Oh, I thought you said 4 players.
Oh, no, sorry. 3 receivers, top 4 tiers. Tier 1, Antonio Brown's going to kill it. Going up against New Orleans, their defense garbage. Big Ben's going to have to put up points, and Brown's going to be the one getting them.
Brown, always at least 5 catches and 50 yards. We know
Of
that.
course, he's never not going to get that.
And Big Ben, 18 touchdowns and 1 pick at home this year. So Antonio Brown is an excellent play.
It's going to be a whiteout in Green Bay. Jordy Nelson, 70-yard touchdowns all day.
And probably the number 1 guy in my second tier will do that too for Green Bay in Randall Cobb. We also got T.Y. Hilton, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans, Kelvin Benjamin, and Josh Gordon is in tier 2 now. Macklin, Jeffrey, and Tate all played.
I'm surprised they haven't come up with a nickname for Odell Beckham Jr. and the sick catches this dude makes. You see that catch last week? That was
the 3-finger
sick,
catch.
He did admit that his gloves help him, but anybody who's ever worn receiver gloves know that they help you catch the football, and I don't really care if they do help you. That was amazing. Amazing by that dude.
Yeah, he has 44 targets over his past 4 games, and he has 503 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, the Steelers almost drafted him. They decided to take Shazier instead.
Yeah, they should have drafted him because he is a beast.
If Shazier turns out to be as good as they said, I'll go either way, but if not, then yeah, you're right. Obviously, they should have taken Beckham.
Mike Evans, he got a tough matchup going against Cincinnati, but he's scoring every week, so I keep playing him.
He's big, man, so he creates his own mismatch, even if there's 2 guys on him.
Macklin already played, but he had a solid week.
Tier 3, Roddy White, Julian Edelman,
Minotron.
Keenan Allen, and Brandon LaFell.
Why do they call him Minotron? I don't really get it.
Who? Edelman?
Edelman, yeah.
Please.
I mean, he's mini and he catches passes. I get that part.
Call him Snowman.
But he's going up against Green Bay. They give up the 9th most points to fantasy wide receivers. He has 33 targets and 25 receptions over the past 3 weeks, including 11 receptions last week. Brady loves this guy. They don't keep re-signing him for nothing. He's going to be a consistent player in your lineup if you have him.
Same with Brandon LaFell. He's doing it too. That's why they're always close to each other in my tiers, because they both get it done. But Keenan Allen is the guy I want to talk about. He has a great matchup this week going at Baltimore.
Speak on it.
They let up the 2nd most fantasy points to wide receivers, and he's finally starting to get it done. This dude has all the talent in the world, but he just wasn't consistent all year, and now that Phillip Rivers isn't doing that great, it seems like Keenan Allen's getting better.
He's the one player that I never dropped all year long. I've had him all year. I played him 1 week.
And he probably did nothing for you.
No, he did have I played him 1 week. I think he gave me what I needed, but he was the one player that I did not drop all year. And I've already bowed out of the playoffs because, like I told you,
you're not done yet, man.
Live projections got me to lose this. It was do or die to get into the playoffs, and I got Keenan Allen sitting on the bench, and you know what, Keenan, maybe I'll catch you next year, brother.
If you pray to the fantasy god who is JDash, you may have a chance at pulling this out.
If you believe in that live projection,
I believe JDash.
Stay strong.
His fantasy projections kick ass.
Tier 4, DeAndre Hopkins, Vincent Jackson, Andre Johnson, Mike Wallace, and Sammy Watkins.
They got Ryan Mallett down there. They thought they finally found a quarterback who could at least get them the ball, and the dude tears his pec and he's garbage. He's beat for the year, so I don't know. They seem like high tiers for me.
I disagree. They were actually playing better with Fitzpatrick at
Well, they only
quarterback.
played 2 games with Mallet.
Okay, but they were two of the most consistent receivers in fantasy football all season, and then Mallet came along, and both their numbers dropped. Mallet looked good his first game, but it was actually not helping the receivers
So that's
in
why
fantasy.
that's why there are T4 plays because Mallet's out. If
Maybe
Mallet would be,
T5.
are
If
they
Mallet-
still T4 if Mallet's in? Probably not. Maybe Johnson.
Yeah,
Or
no,
no,
I'd say
Hopkins.
Hopkins is the better play.
If Mallet was still in, but since Mallet's departure, Fitzpatrick is going to be able to get the ball to those two.
Yeah,
in your
probably
opinion.
because they are going to be a worse team and they're going to just need to throw a ton.
Sammy Watkins has been fine. He's had some big weeks. He's 6 fantasy points in 3 straight weeks, and targets vary from week to week. But you know what? He's due.
It's all
He is
yeah,
good.
it's
You're
all
gonna
about
stay-
the quarterback in
yeah.
his case. You
And
know,
he-
if his quarterback has a good week, he's gonna have a big week.
He is a beast too. He almost made it into my tier 2 must starts right before he fell off a little bit, but I expect him to bounce back. Tier 5, Deshaun Jackson, Reggie Wayne, Ruben Randall, and Kenny Stills.
Ruben Randall gets points not just in the passing game, but he also returns punts, and sometimes he gets kicks, but not as much as punts, I don't think. He had just 3 catches for 36 yards last week after 8 straight weeks of 9-plus targets. He hasn't scored since week 5. He's going up against the Jaguars, who are just god-awful. If you had to pick a defense to play against, it's either the Jags or the Raiders. He's going to have a big week. Eli can't play this bad all year. He's going to have 1 or 2 games where he looks good, and then people are going to keep saying, oh, he's still got it, even though he's just garbage. But Randall will have a big week. Jacksonville's terrible. Bet on it.
Deshaun Jackson, I want to see what he does because he did nothing with
Snake
RG3,
McCoy.
but he was having huge weeks before Griffin took over the reins. And yeah, he is inconsistent, but he's a must play when he's on.
I just still can't understand McCoy over RG3. Real quick. You're going to dump RG3 at the end of the year. He has no trade value now by benching him. And
His trade value is only going down.
who has a chance at showing something more over the last 4 games? McCoy's the last one on that list. If you really want to evaluate what RG3 can do, you got to play him.
Tier 6, Mohamed Sanu, Jarvis Landry, Steve Smith Sr., Larry Fitzgerald, who is questionable. He was inactive last week. And then Turi Smith and Marquise Colston.
I think I might have heard that he's out this week already.
Fitzgerald was
Yeah.
called out. Well, that
I will double check that, but he said he wasn't going to play, but then it wasn't up to him. That's what I heard.
Well, if he doesn't play, that means John Brown is probably going to have a bigger role in the offense, and he is in my tier 7 here, which is Martavis Bryant, Percy Harvin, John Brown, Robert Woods, and Kendall Wright.
Bryant's kind of dropped off the last game or so. He was shut down for the first time last week, 2 catches, 11 yards. But he still has 6 TDs in his previous 4 games and 5 TDs in 3 home games. Like we said a couple times already, the Steelers are going to have to be slinging it around to win this game. He's going up against the Saints, who give up the 8th most fantasy points to wide receivers. I could see him catching maybe a long touchdown, probably not a lot of catches, maybe something like 4 for 85 and a touch, maybe 5 and 2 touches.
Percy Harvin, he blew up for 11 catches and 129 yards a few weeks ago. I think it was week 9. But he just has 4 catches for 25 yards in his last 2 games. And the offense has looked really bad. But he's a guy who can blow up at any point. I mean, he showed with that 11-catch game. And if Geno Smith, with Geno Smith coming back, this may actually help him.
Does he still bring back punts or anything, though? Does he still?
Oh, yeah,
return
they're going to
punts then?
use him as much as possible.
So there's
Dude,
opportunities for points are there for Percy Harvin. I don't know. The Jets are garbage.
I'd rather have Geno Malkin at quarterback than Geno Smith, all right? So, although you're right, Harvin's going to get touches in the return game, and they also just hand him the ball sometimes on end arounds and stuff.
Right.
Geno Smith is just so bad. So bad. But I guess somebody's got to get the points for the Jets, so why not be Harvin?
Hey, Geno Smith is bad enough where they might just have to throw screen passes to
Why don't
Percy
they just
Harvin.
let Harvin throw it to himself?
Yeah.
And then he can get points for passing and catching.
Tier 8,
I got a laugh out of our producer.
James Jones. I just laughed because it was terrible. James Jones, Kenny Britt, Andrew Hawkins, and Cecil Shorts.
Cecil, eat my shorts.
James Rollin Jones.
Kenny Britt's my play here. I'm going to keep picking him every week. Keep picking him. I was right 1 week out of, 10 now so far. It's got a tough matchup. Oakland gives up the 7th fewest points to fantasy wide receivers. He only had 2 catches for 37 yards last week after a breakout game and Hill's first start. I think Hill and Britt are just going to build a bigger rapport. He's the only offensive threat they have at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Just chuck him the ball, man. Why not?
Jared Cook isn't that bad either.
Yeah.
Tier 9, Malcolm Floyd, Greg Jennings, Eric Decker, and Michael Floyd. We got the Floyd bros up in
Two
tier
Yeah.
9.
Floyds and
To
2
Williams
tiers again.
and-
We got
Williams
Williamses, Floyds. We don't even know what's going on.
Let me flip the Floyd coin. Hold on.
Floyd it.
All right, I got it. We're gonna go with Michael this week.
I bet you his initials are MF, right?
He is a sleeper. That MFer is a sleeper this week. He had 0 catches last week, and though he's had his good games, he doesn't have a great quarterback, and it's going to be tough. But I don't know. I'm going to just call him a sleeper because he's liable to catch a 40-yard pizza.
He did have 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago, I think it was, but it was only on 2 catches. But if you're right that Larry Fitzgerald is out, that just means Michael Floyd may get a few more looks.
Right.
Tier 10, Justin Hunter, Pierre Garçon, and Dwayne Bowe. Debo.
I'm never big on Pierre Garçon, even when he was playing all right. He's going up against the Colts, who give up the 5th fewest points to fantasy wide receivers. Garçon's only had 11 catches and 102 yards over his past 4 games, and he's had no TDs in that time. And I don't know, people think that McCoy's going to make it better. I like to call him Snake McCoy because I think it's fun and funny, but I don't think he's any good. If he was any good, he would have already been starting in the league, and he wouldn't have been 3rd string behind Kirk Cousins and RG3. So with McCoy in, I think it's only going to get worse. I think Garçon's going to struggle. The whole Redskins offense is going to struggle. The only thing that's going to do better is maybe the tight end, because they're usually a safety blanket, and the running backs will get a lot of carries and a lot of looks in the short passing game.
Justin Hunter at the top of T10, up against Houston, giving up the most points to wide receivers, it looks like. He's TDD. He's touchdown dependent. I don't know if you can rely on him.
Yeah, it's tough, but he did have 10 targets last week. I don't think that's going to happen again. But if
PPR.
He did score last week, so this is a great matchup. Like you said, Houston's the worst against fantasy wide receivers. So if he's ever going to have a big game, this is the week.
Score points fast in PPR.
TDD.
Tier 11.
Don't say his name.
Lewis Murphy.
Why do you always got to bring this dude up?
Alan Hearns, Andre Holmes, and Chris Hogan.
You know, you bring up Murphy, brother, every week, and he could be the reason why the Steelers don't make the playoffs because of that loss.
Yeah, Lewis Murphy, who knows what this dude's going to do, really. He killed it his first 3 games that he played when they started playing him. It was in week 5, 6, something like that.
Who did he play for? Tampa.
Yeah. But he's either blown up or done nothing. Last week he blew up, but with Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson there, Josh McCown at quarterback, there's only so much to go around. How can you trust Lewis Murphy?
Maybe he's doing a little bit of skiing before the games that he's playing well in, and he didn't have any for the other games, and that's why he's slacking.
Chris Hogan, I don't think anybody has ever heard of him. I haven't heard of him. One time last week you mentioned him, Dash, but
yeah,
I don't know. He's grabbed the hold of the number 2 option for Orton, which it's all right, but Buffalo and Kyle Orton, please.
They're in a lot of disarray with the 25 feet of snow they got too.
Yeah, they're still reeling, but they handled business in Detroit though. Don't get me wrong. Buffalo, they're not out of it. Buffalo still got a chance.
I almost took Buffalo as my pick of the week.
Get out of here.
Get the bleep out of here.
Get out.
Shut the front door.
Going up against Cleveland at home.
Brother.
I think Buffalo can pull it out. Tier 12, Marcus Wheaton, Wes Welker, Stedman Bailey, and Devontae Adams.
Wheaton's been kind of a disappointment for me this year. I had higher hopes for him. He's going up against New Orleans, 8th most fantasy points. Dash is probably laughing at me because I talk about the Steelers every time they're in a segment. He's only had 2 good fantasy weeks in his last 7 games, though, and he seems to be TD dependent.
TDD.
His 2 good games were in his last 2 home games, and he scored in both of those games. So he may catch fire and get one this week. The ball will probably be spread all over the field if the game plan is right for Pittsburgh, because New Orleans' defense is not good. So you got to get the ball to multiple receivers and keep spreading it around. I don't know, though. I thought Wheaton could be more of a tier 5 or 6 guy this year. I'm a little disappointed in his tier 12 performance.
Stedman Bailey, I know you said you like Sean Hill to Kenny Britt, but Bailey was the one that came up big last week. He had 7 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown, and really that was his first relevant fantasy performance of his career. I'm skeptical of it, but who knows? Maybe Stedman Bailey steps up as the number 1 receiver in St. Louis.
And my sources in Denver tell me that Wes Welker's been getting along with Peyton Manning a little bit better lately, and that the loss of who was that? Julius Thomas?
Thomas.
Loss of Julius Thomas opened up the door for him a little bit, so he's still there. Peyton remembers he's there. It's a slight, 30-40% chance of a whiteout against KC. But and also my sources in the Green Bay locker room have told me that Devontae Adams did not practice today, so I don't think he's even going to be able to play this week. Keep an eye out for him, though. Just check his status, but I know he did not practice today.
Tier 13, Eddie Royal, Miles Austin, Dante Moncrief, and Nate Washington.
As much as I like to hate on Nate Washington, he's carved out a pretty nice career for himself. Nothing too flashy, but he's been mostly solid. He's got a good matchup this week against Houston. They give up the most points to fantasy wide receivers. He has 3 double-digit fantasy performances in his last 3 games. One was kind of on a fluke 80-yard touchdown, and that was his only catch of the day. But hey, points are points, and when you're living in a PPR world, you take PPR points because you want a PP win.
Dante Moncrief, I like this guy. He's starting to be used a little bit more in the offense. You still can't trust him because they have T.Y. Hilton and Reggie Wayne out there. But if something happened to one of those two, Moncrief would be a must-add immediately. Tier 14, Harry Douglas, Jericho Cotchery, Cordero Patterson. Anything? No, move on. Cordero Patterson is butt.
Yeah, all 3 of those guys are butt. So if you have one of them, thanks, fans, for tuning in. That wraps up our Week 13 wide receiver segment. Thanks, Dash and Easy, for sitting in. You guys can follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. You can get all your PPR information there. Check out our Facebook page. We could set up like a PPR folder. I don't really know how Facebook works at all. Dash handles all that for us. And you subscribe to that YouTube channel, and we'll put up PPR points all year long, folks.